All right, welcome into another NL East MLB draft preview. Today we are wrapping up the NL East, actually. It's Friday. We're going to tackle the Philadelphia Phillies. Ian, I think we can agree. It's been an up and down cycle, I guess you could say, for the Phillies now for a while. They've really had trouble drafting and developing outfielders for the better part of 6, 7, 8 years. But they've seen some returns on investment here of late. I think Alec Bohm has been an awesome pick for 2018. He's really putting up big offensive numbers for the Phillies. He looks like a middle of the order bat that they're going to be able to use for a very long time. Bryson Stott, the jury's still out, but I think the batted ball data that he's seen over the last year suggests he's starting to come into a little bit more of his own. I think there might be a little bit more swing tinkering there that needs done, but he's looking up. And then, of course, we love Mick Abel from 2020, bombshell pick that fell all the way to into their laps at like 19, I think. But this year, it's a little bit more of a diminished draft. They pick at 13th overall. Is there a guy in this draft that you can kind of circle and say, that's the type of name that I think the Phillies would like to see fall in their lap?
I think there's a guy that's fallen in their lap. It's been mentioned on a few mocks going forward. It's one of the toolsier players in this year's class. It's going to be an outfielder out of Pennsylvania himself, and that's Benny Montgomery. He's just an extremely toolsy player that you can really look at as a long-term center fielder. He kind of fits along that Mickey Moniak profile where there's a lot that you need to develop there still, but I still think there's star potential you can get at 13 with Moniak. A Cowser is another name that I mentioned earlier is going to Washington at 11. I think that could be a possibility for Philly here at 13. I think they're really going to look for, like an outfielder, you said they've had a problem developing outfielder, but there's some outfielders in this range that I think they can either underslot from the prep range, or they can go for the college round with like a Colton Cowser. Excuse me, I'm over here mumbling my words.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think the outfield is where they're going to try and put their attention. I don't know if there's a guy on the board at 13 that necessarily makes sense over a college starter, but we'll see. I think Benny Montgomery is an excellent call. I mean, they have not been afraid to go upside, especially with going Mick Abel last year. Benny Montgomery, we've talked about potentially being the best bet to becoming a superstar in this entire class, but there's a lot of work ahead for him. I think Sal Frelick is a guy that stands out to me. I don't think there's a lot of development that needs to be done there. He's a hit over power, pure center fielder who's going to track down just about anything hit to him in a very spacious Philadelphia park. I think one other guy that you could look out for, and he might be gone by now, is Will Taylor. Another guy that plays a pure center field. There are questions on the impact of the bat, but if you're looking for a guy kind of similar to a Roman Quinn in that sense, that's just going to go out and go get it, Will Taylor is an excellent top of the lineup type of spark plug, like a Sam Fold type. So I think, Philadelphia could go in a number of directions, but I want to throw it back to you. And if they were to avoid the outfield, which I think is probably where they want to go, is there one college pitcher that makes the most sense at this spot that you could see Philadelphia jumping on?
I think Will Taylor was a great call, by the way. I was a name I wanted to mention myself, and it just passed my mind, but that's awesome. They brought that up. But a college pitcher in this range, I think Jordan Wicks fits right here really well. I think he's a guy who could fly through their system and be a big league ready pitcher maybe by the end of 2022. Maybe not a top of the line starter, but a guy who can fill in the rotation and be a guy who's ready to play. So I think that's a guy who could really fit there at 13. I do think that the high upside play here is the way to go, but somebody like Jordan Wicks or maybe even Ty Madden could be somebody that could pop off the board to Philly here.
I love it, man. Those are good calls. We've really reinforced this over the last week and on the draft pod that we do every week. This is going to be a year that a lot of things happen that a lot of people don't expect. Don't be surprised if like an Ethan Wilson gets popped off the board right here. Don't be surprised if a Spencer Schwellenbach comes off the board here at 13. I would go even a step further. Don't be surprised if someone like a Michael McGreevy or, a Frank Mazzucato gets pulled off the board at 13. It's just, it's a
Jay
year.
Allen's a name that's
Jay Allen
sticking in my head as well. That could pop
Jay
off
Allen makes a lot of sense. Tons of projection.
Yeah, tons of projection
Yeah,
center
tons of.
field plus runner. He's a guy who could really pop off. Fits that multi-position player that can fill in the outfield. But yeah, I think Allen's a
Agreed.
guy. I think somebody's going to underslide in the first round that we're not talking about enough.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think after you get past the first 5 or 6 picks, the names that you're going to see coming off the board are going to be unfamiliar in cases more often than not. So that's going to do it for the Philadelphia Phillies, though. We think they're going to go outfield. We think at least at the very least they're going to target outfield. We don't know if there's going to be a name on the board at 13 that they covet to go in the direction outside of college pitching. So the Phillies are another team to watch. I mean, they don't really have a track record. They've gone the small school Alec Bohm route. They've gone the bigger school UNLV Bryson Stott route. And then, of course, they went the prep ranks with Mick Abel. They've really kind of touched them all. So we'll see where Philadelphia decides to go in 2021. But that's going to do it for the NL East draft previews. Ian, thank you so much for joining me this week. It's been a pleasure, and looking forward to July 11th.